All right, let's talk about the Offensive Rookie of the Year himself, Garrett Wilson. What a great year he had year one. I figured he deserves a film study. Let's talk about why he was able to be so successful in year one and maybe where he could even improve from here and turn from a really good wide receiver to a potential elite one. Well, let's get into it. I mean, one thing that I think he did a great job at is, what kind of separates the good receivers from the great ones is, can you win on the outside? Can you win in one-on-one situations? In a situation like this, where it's goal line, one-on-one matchup, let's see, there's only one guy who's out wide, right? Everyone else is near the offensive line. So, okay, let's see if Garrett Wilson can find a way to win his one-on-one matchup. Right off the bat, you see kind of those stutter steps, not really making it clear one way or the other where he's going. Right, as of right now, when I paused it, you can see he's about to go towards the bottom of the screen, but that's because I just paused it there. And what that does, all those stutter steps, is it basically means that, one of those steps is going to be your plant foot and where you go, but as a corner, you just don't know when that's going to happen. So then when he cuts down towards the bottom of the screen, I mean, he is just wide open right there, and he's able to easily win that one-on-one matchup. So, this was very early on into the season. You can tell because Joe Flacco was the one that actually threw that ball, and that's one of the things that Wilson deserves so much credit for is with, the disaster that was at the quarterback position last season. You could argue Joe Flacco was their best quarterback last year. The fact that he was still able to find consistent success was very impressive, I thought, and he showed it right away. Now let's go over to this play. It's going to be man coverage, but it's a little bit unique just in that there's, currently Wilson is in motion from the left side of the field, so closest to the top of the screen, moving towards the bottom of the screen. And because of that, Cleveland's going to switch who's covering who on this play. So, similar to basketball, sometimes you fight through the pick, sometimes you just switch. But anyways, okay, so they get the switch, and you see that right here, Wilson is about to cut underneath, over the middle of the field, which there's good and bad. The obvious good is that it's just an easy angle to make that throw. You're in position where, you're right in front of the quarterback, so it definitely makes it easier for the quarterback to make that throw. The obvious downside, though, is that the corner is in pretty good position right now. The defensive back covering Wilson is in position to try and make this play, but this is really where the explosiveness of Garrett Wilson is going to come into play. Watch as Garrett Wilson is able to run through, he is able to make the catch, and doesn't even get tackled, and he's able to get the ball all the way to the 10-yard line. That's really where he thrived, I thought, was how explosive he is in his footwork, his shiftiness. Those kind of things were what allowed him to be a very successful player right away, and especially on those over-the-middle routes, which the Jets love to run, he really fit that team very well. And while we do have a new offensive coordinator there now, as it's the Nathaniel Hackett era in New York, obviously with Garrett Wilson and with Aaron Rodgers, I do expect Garrett Wilson to still do a lot of the similar things he did last year, as they're not that dissimilar of offenses, really. A lot of what they did last year, they're going to do this year. But also, let's talk about something like this, where, again, let's talk about him potentially winning on the outside. So it's going to turn into a one-on-one matchup deep down the field. It's a zone coverage now, but it's, a cover two zone. So he's going to be him one-on-one against a safety. And what's very fascinating about this play, in my opinion, is, these are the kind of things you look towards, right? Can your receiver win down the field? Well, right when this play begins, you look at how it looks like, he gets the inside leverage right away. And that's always something that's very important to note with receivers is just where are you? How do you run these routes? The defensive backs you're going up against are so skilled. You have to be really perfect a lot of times to be able to find ways to make stuff happen. And Garrett Wilson is he being perfect? I'll let you be the judge, but he's being very good. And because of this, the safety who is currently on that side of the field has his hips turned towards the bottom of the screen, and so Garrett Wilson is taking advantage of this. Watch him then cut towards the outside, and he is going to be able to make a catch deep down the field, and these were the kind of things Garrett Wilson was able to consistently do. And this is, an interesting thing about, in college, a lot of what he did to win was to just blow by guys, right? That was kind of his way of winning down the field, is he was just faster than the corners he was going up against. And it's part of what makes evaluating receivers so difficult to do, is because there was kind of the question of, okay, at the NFL level, some of these moves aren't going to work. Is he going to be able to find ways to still get open down the field? But the thing is, some of those moves didn't work at the NFL level, but they worked at the college level, so he was doing the right thing by still running those moves. He's a smart, athletic player, and so he now, when he's at the NFL level, will just do the moves that work at the NFL level. He adjusted properly, and that's why he's been so successful right away. And also stuff like this. Again, he's always been great at these sort of zone buster things and just understanding zone. He has a great feel for zone. And again, that's something that a lot of young players struggle with, but that's something that this offense really wants guys who can do. They want players who can find ways to get open against zone coverage, and this is going to be an example of Wilson doing exactly that. Watch how right when this play begins, I really do think that a lot of players in this spot would just wonder right at this point, they would just be at, this point, turn around, hopefully get open. But for Garrett Wilson, I think he kind of knows he's not as open as he could be right here. If he just turned around and stopped right now, kind of staying right at the, the 3 right there, well, okay, maybe he could get open, but still, there's ways to maximize how open you are. And I want to be very clear, and before showing what exactly happens, is to just show, to explain what I'm going to say is that, it's very subtle what he's going to do here. It's not a massive thing, but these little subtleties are sometimes really what makes the difference between good and great receivers. Watch him move in a little bit and a little bit further down to allow himself to get as open as possible, as, be in that gap in coverage as much as possible. And to me, that is what allowed him to get as open as possible. And while some people might look at these routes and say, you ran into a spot, it happened to be open due to the play concept, how much value do we actually give you for that? How much credit do you get? What did you bring to your team really on that play? But the reality is, it would not have been as open with a replacement level wide receiver right there. Part of why it was so open is because of the subtleties that Garrett Wilson did to allow it to get that open. And also stuff like this, I'm just going to highlight, it's again, essentially going to be a one-on-one matchup. There's more going on than just that, but it's going to turn into a one-on-one matchup between the two players I've circled on the screen. And watch as Garrett Wilson, just look at him be able to, completely, shake him off a couple of times and still find a way to make that tough catch. That's what Garrett Wilson is capable of, and he's just really difficult to cover, Sometimes it's just as simple as that. Be difficult to cover, and that's what Garrett Wilson is. So, with all that being said, that's why Garrett Wilson is so successful at this level. How much can he improve? Well, I think that maybe the biggest way he can improve is to just get the ball more, get better targets, and with Aaron Rodgers, he's certainly going to get Wilson the ball a lot easier than maybe the ball got to him last year, I think is fair to say. So, as a whole, definitely a lot of reason to be excited if you're a Jets fan, just in general, but especially about Garrett Wilson and the performance that he had. And hey, having a young, very good wide receiver, there's obviously a ton of value in that and could, really help them, potentially win a Super Bowl next year. Those are the aspirations for the New York Jets in the Aaron Rodgers era. So, very fascinating stuff. But yeah, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.